The Netflix Daredevil series is one of the most popular and highly praised superhero TV shows ever made, with a lead actor born to play the role, extremely nuanced writing, and action set pieces that have changed the genre altogether. This show lives in the hearts of many comic fans across the globe. So when it was announced that this show, at the peak of its writing and quality, was cancelled, the world fell into a deep depression. I cried for 3 days. However, 7 years after its cancellation, Disney's revived the series with Daredevil Born Again. And since the original show is one of my favorite TV shows ever made, well, I had to watch this. So in today's video, I'm reviewing the whole show, going over each episode, and giving you my thoughts on each of them. So without further ado, let's dive right into... Do you guys like that I'm trying to become more and more like Matt Murdock every single day? So before we dive into each episode in depth, I figured I'd give you my ranking of the episodes this season from best to worst, so you can get an idea of where this video is going. So this is how I'd rank them. I think certain episodes are much better than others, with a consistent use of great storytelling not showing up to the later half of the show. Now, if you're at all upset or in agreement and wish to continue further down this rabbit hole of my thoughts on each episode, well, I'm not going to stop you, because we're diving into the first episode right now. Okay, what the fuck? My heart! Unfortunately, due to the nature of Marvel writers wanting to reveal major hints to spoilers ahead of time, and someone who peruses Twitter frequently, Foggy's death was rumored for ages, so I was kinda expecting it to happen, but damn, it's still shocking anyways. I honestly loved the whole setup for it. Seeing the gang again was so refreshing, even though it was short-lived. I felt the chaos of this scene was done very well. Even the fight between Bullseye and Daredevil felt raw and passionate, in part to Charlie Cox giving the performance of his career for this character. Seeing Matt break down and scream and cry over his friend was heartbreaking. Since I just watched the series again leading up to this, I couldn't help but be saddened since I was waiting years for them to reconnect. But overall, the scene is well done. I figure I'll go over the things I liked about this episode first, but Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin steal the show. The best parts of this episode lie in those two making every scene feel like the original. Plus, their chemistry is great. I thought the idea of Fisk being mayor is a great idea. However, its execution was messy, and I'll go over that later. The one action sequence we do get with Matt and Bullseye in the beginning was cool, even though it's covered in CGI and weird smoke effects. And there are some cool camera techniques I thought were interesting and fresh. However, I didn't really enjoy this episode all that much, and that's because of the trajectory the show sets itself down and how quickly it gets there. I've heard that the show's creative overhaul forced the fight between Matt and Bullseye in the beginning because the show is apparently only a courtroom drama, so the first episode and the final ones were changed the most. Although Foggy's death was a pretty well done scene, the fact Matt tries to kill Bullseye right after the finale of season 3 boggles my mind. Just from a writing standpoint, how many times is Matt going to have to either quit being Daredevil or give up his morals in order to find himself again by the end of the season? Because it's happened multiple times now. He gave up being Daredevil after Elektra died in season 2 and was living life as just Matt Murdock in the beginning of the Defender show. If you didn't know that, well, that's no surprise because the Defender show sucks. And then he also gave up his morals after she actually died for real this time in season 3 and almost started killing then, but overcame it. And what happens with Foggy's death? He stops being Daredevil and was willing to kill again immediately. Maybe it's the fact I rewatched season 3, but this whiplash of a character regression is astounding. Surely they could have found another way to showcase Matt's depression than him doing what we've already seen. Also, while I like the idea of Mayor Fisk, rushing it into existence is crazy work. This whole arc should have been a season long easily, but in this it happens within 20 minutes? How? The last we saw of him, he was going to prison again for infiltrating the FBI and using his power to run the city. Even with his introduction in the MCU, we don't know how he got out of prison, let alone how he's convinced the city that's seen him overthrow them twice that he's a proper candidate for mayor. All we get is one sequence where he's on a debate stage, a few citygoers saying they are for him or against him, and then he's fucking mayor. What? And don't get me started on whether or not the show is trying to embrace the past MCU connections it has, or not, because are we forgetting that Wilson Fisk straight up took a bullet to the brain brain and shrugged it off. Like, the power scaling is ridiculous. I also wasn't a fan of Karen being replaced by randoms who are clearly characters just meant to replace her and other characters from the previous show. Like, I'm all for new characters, but when it's clear they're just Karen with a new face or Mahoney with a new face, it doesn't make them feel like someone with an identity, really. Like, why is Cherry here? Who is Cherry? And why did he take up shots in the intro that took away from Foggy? The only time we get to see Foggy before he died. Also, this shot is horrific. The CGI and green screen backgrounds for this episode are just irritating, to be honest. Overall, I think this episode just really wasn't it for me. The show does get better, but episode 1 was just something I wasn't super into. Alright, episode 2 is much more my style. It just goes to show how slowing the pace down and letting the characters breathe make it feel so much more organic. This episode is very political, and its decision to dive into police brutality and vigilante cop killing was quite an interesting step for the show to go down. Made it very engaging for me anyways. Since there's no Daredevil to be seen here, you kinda have to have an interesting story thread to follow outside of the suit for me to feel even remotely interested. This showcases how vigilantism is being treated under Fisk's new mayoral position, but also places Fisk in an interesting territory, needing to persuade the cops to work under him. But that proves to be difficult since the commissioner absolutely hates his guts. I'm glad that they're showing other characters not easily accepting Fisk as mayor. Probably one of my favorite scenes of the show is between the commissioner and Fisk. Fisk slowly antagonizing the commissioner and then briefly flashing his son and presumed wife had me freaking out. I love Fisk when he's being manipulative, and it just made me more excited to see how he slowly developed over the rest of the season. So yeah, pretty much all of the stuff related to Kingpin I liked a lot. I thought the scene he shared with Ben Urich's niece, Bibi, was great too, and her little exchanges with citygoers getting their opinions on these certain topics I found new and interesting. It adds a lot to that more grounded feel. Honestly reminded me of that little section in the original Spider-Man movie where they're interviewing people on the street. Although I'm not a huge fan of Vanessa and Wilson being split up, I find the therapy sessions of the show to be quite intriguing, and especially with it being with Matt's new love interest, it added to a lot of complex emotions. Speaking of Matt, I enjoyed seeing him do his lawyer thing in this. It's been a minute since we've gotten lawyer Matt, and him taking on a case regarding the murder of a police officer through potential vigilantism is quite exciting. I think White Tiger's involvement is fun and adds more depth to the city's crime fighting scene. Good to know that there's other superheroes out there fighting crime, you know? It's a concept of right thing to do at the wrong time. That scene of Matt talking with Hector at the prison was... And that ending fight? Raw as hell. Some action is better than none when it comes to Daredevil, so I'll take what I can get. In terms of things I didn't like with this episode, the Hector fight in the beginning was pretty trash, man. I mean, you can barely tell what's going on with how many cuts there are. Even in the Matt apartment fight, it feels like that too. And I don't know, I'm still not sold on Cherry as a character. I feel like it should have been Mahoney, regardless. He acts like he's known Matt for years and knows he's Daredevil, but we don't even know who this guy is. Also, Daniel can be kind of annoying. Overall, this episode was a massive improvement in tone for me compared to the first, and that Spider-Man tease,
or a man who dresses in a spider outfit.
Hell yeah. This makes me pray we get a street level Spidey movie next, for the love of God, for my sanity. Courtroom drama, baby, right up my alley. Part 2. I dug how episode 2 introduced us to White Tiger, and this episode fully develops that case, and I loved it a lot. I'm a huge fan of court case drama, especially with how well done it can be for this show from seasons prior. A lot of this reminded me of the Punisher's trial from season 2, just with a much different outcome.
I did it because I liked it, and I loved it.
Hector really comes into his own as a character here, and that goes in part to his actor, Camar de los Reyes, bringing a nuance to him that really shined. I loved his monologue in the beginning, talking all about the Crow Key and its importance to his home life. Just really great stuff. It's very grounding. He and Matt in general have great moments together, like near the end of the episode when he tells Matt that the White Tiger is his calling, how it chose him, talking to his lawyer, a former vigilante. Great scene all around. And Matt revealing that he's the White Tiger in the courtroom was... His little moments of anxiety when the witness lies under oath, incredible switch up by the way, but Matt calming Hector down and not reacting was handled really well. Matt's journey to putting the mask back on is still developing here, but this case is clearly shifting him to put it on again soon, which I thought was really cool. Matt's got a lot of great moments to shine here too, man. I'm a sucker for Matt in court, so seeing him question the witnesses, get under their skin, awesome. Dude's just aura forming while being blind. I also enjoyed the little moments he shares with Heather about Foggy during their dinner, just opening up about his trauma for it was really intriguing to see from a development standpoint. Fisk starting to manipulate the system again and fall back to his criminal ways with this newfound power is so exciting. And man, that final 30-second montage ending this episode with it leading to White Tiger's death, cinema. Plus, the whole Punisher best reveal was very, very interesting. I like that the show is diving into concepts of previous seasons, like with Punisher and his acts of vigilantism. Episode 3 is another really well done episode, and the only complaint I have is how little we see of White Tiger providing acts of service before this whole trial. All we get is a 5-second clip on a phone of him beating some people up. Would have been cool had the first scene we see of him be doing one of the acts of service one of the testifiers mentioned. That way it's not him killing a cop, going to court, and then immediately dying once he's out. But yeah, Born Again is cooking with gas when it comes to the down-to-earth parts like these past 2 episodes. Episode 4 is a pretty decent episode for the most part, and before people start freaking out at me in the comments, I too enjoyed all of the Punisher scenes, even though it lasts like 10 minutes within this whole episode. The rest of the episode is just a reminder to Matt that the justice system doesn't really work, and those who are discriminated against easily are more susceptible to harsh treatment and unfairness, through the use of a stolen caramel corn plot. Yeah, Matt, buddy, how are you making any money through these cases? While I appreciate the fact the show is leading us to Matt becoming Daredevil again, I can't help but notice it's starting to slow the pace down. I find this episode is where it starts to feel real prominent that the lack of actual Daredevil activities is wearing the show down and boring me. At least for me, it felt that way. And the caramel corn thing only exasperated that feeling. Only made up for the inclusion of the Punisher, which, although is a phenomenal scene, feels kind of forced. I don't think his inclusion felt natural, really. Matt finds his bunker on one street Hector got killed at. Kinda convenient. And what's the Punisher doing here anyways? I figured that'll be addressed in his special, but for the theme of the scene, I loved it. Punisher and Matt tend to have absolutely goated dialogue between each other, and that's prevalent here too. I loved how Punisher made Matt feel all these different emotions for losing Foggy, how the pain will eat at him until he does something about it, how the justice system fails, and how he can't be satisfied with life in prison. Just great stuff. No matter what, Jon Bernthal as the Punisher is a fantastic casting choice. But other than this, I didn't really care that much for this episode. BB exposing Daniel, forcing him to reveal his immense loyalty to Fisk was cool though. I love when you see Fisk just corrupt those around him. Did it to Dex, now Daniel. Something with D's, I guess. Dylan is up next. But like I said in the beginning, this episode is only decent to me. Jon Bernthal makes it even worth watching. Episode 5 takes a fun and unique approach by putting Matt in an active hostage situation and having to figure out how to maneuver through it. And it's the most entertained I've been in this show so far. It's an episode that really makes you feel like you're reading a comic book one-shot story with your favorite superhero. From the crazy thick accented Irish robbers to the St. Paddy's Day setting, the immense police activity, and Matt meeting Kamala Khan's father, this episode is just a ton of fun. As someone who's never seen the Ms. Marvel show, this episode brought me to like Yusuf Khan a lot, and I really enjoyed watching him and Matt interact, whether it's 4 alone or unlocking the safe or the twist at the end. It was the backbone for this episode, and I enjoyed it a lot. Seeing Matt have to trick and commandeer the power from the robbers to himself was awesome to see. There's a lot of thrilling, intense moments this episode that keeps you hooked from start to finish. I also enjoyed how Irish these robbers were. Dudes were laying on the accent strong.
What's your status, lads?
I needed the bank manager to be sufficiently motivated to open the vault. He is now. I donate!
Also, that final fight where Matt just destroyed Homeboy's leg was crazy. Again, this type of episode didn't do much besides give us this fun one-shot kind of story, and I think that's how a filler episode should be, engineering a fun plot to progress the hero back into action, and this episode did that wonderfully. This episode dives deeper into that gritty, uncomfortable darkness that I loved so much about the original series. Finally giving us someone like Muse, a serial killer who uses the bodies of his victims to make murals with, is crazy and dark as shit, and I'm all for it. I think this episode finally letting Matt back out into the suit was much needed, since like I said before, it was getting kind of boring not having any Daredevil action for a while, but oh man. The final battle in this episode between Muse and Daredevil, synced with Fisk fighting Adam, Vanessa's boy toy, was wild. This whole section of the episode had me jumping up and down from my seat. This was definitely the best produced fight sequence compared to previous episodes. I love the darker undertones making its way to the forefront with this episode too. Seeing Fisk use his political power to hire dirty cops to fight in his anti-vigilante league was interesting. Also, love that they introduced Cole North. If you haven't read Zardsky's Daredevil run, I highly recommend it. It's top tier, but having them introduce him here was great. I love seeing Fisk and Vanessa's relationship be used to further their reputation in the higher up political sphere, and honestly, it's episodes like this that make you love Fisk as an antagonist, because that slow build up to him eventually going down that darker road is always appreciated. Overall, this episode is really well done, and the only complaint I have is how little Muse was built up over the series so far. He kind of felt shoehorned in after the whole White Tiger fiasco, but other than that, this series has great footing when it dives into that darker tone. I'm gonna be honest, episode 7 has me feeling indifferent. I like the aspects this episode went down in terms of dark iconography and theme. However, I feel like we rushed to get here so quickly and then just ended it. What is it with Marvel getting sick murdering supervillains who are white and only using them for 5 seconds before killing them off? This episode is focused on Muse, and it turns out this kid who needed Heather's help has been Muse this whole time, and this little rich white brat is the guy that's sucking blood out of people and using them as artwork. What the fuck? So you're telling me this rich white guy who's studied taekwondo and has been battling trauma leads him down this bad path and he just becomes this sicko murdering supervillain? What is it with Marvel and not wanting to make them super twisted just like the comic counterpart? I don't get it. And then we barely get enough backstory within previous episodes anyway. I really wish they just showed him and built him up over previous episodes. I don't mind if Muse was supposed to be a setup villain if he had some more time before this episode to feel like a threat. However, this show didn't even focus on him until the end of episode 4, which was so late, and then kills him. I did like the fight Matt has with him though. Still was kind of entertaining, as well as Fisk's grip on the city tightening again. Him showing up and getting the mobster killed was aura farming at its finest. I will say that the side characters of the show are non-existent. They are just here to fill space. Compare any of these characters to freaking Mitchell Ellison from the original show, and he blows any of Born Again supporting characters out of the water. Kirsten and Cherry are throwaways. Heather isn't developed enough either. So when Muse gets to her, I don't know, I didn't really feel anything. I didn't really care. It's a shame too. There's definitely plenty of ways they could have developed them, but due to the behind the scenes messes, I'm sure it was because of that. It seems like the original writers of the show just didn't care about the side characters at all. Overall, I think this episode is kinda ass. It's not special at all, and kinda bothersome considering Muse is a villain of the week throwaway. They gave me a taste of darkness and then threw it away. This show proved it can build setup villains incredibly well in season 3 with Dex. I really wish Muse was like that and followed his vibe. Yo guys, if you're enjoying this video of my Daredevil Born Again review, hit that subscribe button. These videos take a while to make, so hitting that subscribe button means the world to me. It means I'm doing something right. Anyways, enough from me. Back to the video. Alright, we are so back. This episode was awesome. Whoever they hired to take over these final 2 episodes, well, they came in and absolutely owned The Office, because this is exactly the type of show I was missing. There's thrilling moments, shocking scenes, and so much tension throughout. It was awesome, dude. Watching Fisk build up his anti-vigilante league to the point that the literal commissioner of the police department can't do anything to stop them from doing heinous acts because he has no power whatsoever was astonishing. Fisk's rise to power is concerning to me from a writing standpoint. I don't think it was built up well. However, he's here now, and the acts he's doing is just so entertaining to watch, no matter what. One scene in particular that made my jaw drop was watching Vanessa literally shoot Adam in the face just to win over Fisk's love again. She instantly became a classic character after this moment. Oh my god, I didn't know she had that in her. Watching Fisk fully corrupt Daniel to his side was interesting too. It also made me realize that his relationship with BB is so toxic. They're just manipulating each other, threatening one another, and then using information against each other so casually? Like, what the hell? However, seeing BB confront the commissioner and get him to provide information against Fisk was another great moment. But the real cherry on top of this Sunday of an episode was watching Bullseye come back into the fray. It's incredible how good this guy is. I love whenever he's on screen, and the fact they overlay his sections of the show with this blue tint, I don't really understand it, but it works so well. Seeing him go back and forth with Matt in the police interrogation room was so much fun. You could just just tell how pissed off Matt is at Bullseye here. Matt picking up on this conspiracy surrounding the shooting of Foggy was great, and it's here where you can tell the new writers just started up immediately where they left off in episode 1. Like, everything from 2 through 7 was definitely not that important for this episode, besides some character motivations, I guess. And finally, that whole gala sequence at the end of this episode was so good. I was hooked the moment it started. Bullseye escaping prison and coming back to the gala to shoot Fisk, but Matt gets shot anyway. I was flabbergasted. What a way to end an episode. Definitely one of my favorites of the show. My god! So this is what those new writers were cooking, huh? In a similar way that episode 8 had me hooked from start to finish, this episode had me in a chokehold for its entire runtime. Episode 9 had an aura to it that not only exceeded my expectations from the moment it started, but was goddamn captivating. You can honestly feel how these writers invigorate the lifelessness and messy scripting those first few episodes had by making characters feel accurate to the way the Netflix show had them, but in a new story in a different environment. From the opening minutes of this episode, the tension and thrill start immediately. Fisk locking down the whole city felt right out of a comic book. Seeing Mayor Fisk take action to upend the city for his personal gain was awesome, but how intimidating he felt was the most impressive thing about it. It felt like there was no escaping his rule now. People who looked the other way were praised. Those in opposition of his political power were terminated. Quite graphically, mind you. Poor Gallo got the Red Rush treatment, dude. Incredible scene, by the way. My jaw dropped watching this. However, this whole section of Fisk monitoring the city with his anti-vigilante league, using his subordinates to decide which political advocates were for him or against him, was so engaging. Even in the way the show is shot, feels different. We get parts where the aspect ratio starts changing, super up-close shots to feel personal, and editing that isn't the choppy mess that made me dislike earlier episodes. Daredevil feels like himself again and has agency, something this show was lacking near the middle parts of this season. Matt has to don the suit and escape from the anti-vigilante league with none other than the Punisher, who, god damn it, steals the show like always. His dialogue with Matt is incredible without question, but watching Matt slowly piece up every cop while Frank shotguns a soldier in the head, I was in awe. I love how their difference in ideologies is still present, where Matt gets upset that Frank kills in front of him. I also felt that the inclusion of Karen was so good. Even though her being gone throughout this whole season has been a huge inconsistency, these new writers made her feel just like the Karen from the original, and her and Matt's chemistry is just insane, dude. Plus, seeing her with Frank was cute. That whole line Matt says about hearing their heartbeats when they were talking had me blushing, bro. I loved how everything the trio were running away from and investigating had ties to the first episode. Although I still feel that the first episode has loads of problems, this clears up a lot of issues that I appreciated, like Foggy's court case, interfering with Vanessa's operations, but more specifically, how she was using a specific port to launder money, drugs, and more heinous bullshit. How Bullseye's inclusion felt straight out of season 3 too. That little flashback with Vanessa and Dex felt like a proper season 4 segue. I loved it a lot. This whole episode building up to what looks like an insanely interesting season 2, now that Matt has to find an army worth fighting against Fisk's legion of soldiers and the city under his command. That's now under martial law with a curfew and monitored 24/7. Season 2 is going to be insane. Hopefully, these new writers really showed promise. Like I said, they basically had to rework the botch job the OG writers did and make it a consistent story that makes sense, that has payoff. And the fact these final 2 episodes are as good as they are is really surprising to me. New characters felt more impactful, old characters felt like themselves, and dialogue got much better. It just felt refreshing. So hopefully, the next season will be consistently great for the whole season, like the original show. The final 2 episodes had me hooked, whereas the first season and third season of the original shows had me hooked for the entirety of 13 episodes. And I'm going to remain optimistic because I really enjoyed this finale, but I'm really hoping it's good the entire way through. The action was so much better, the choreography looked very well done, it didn't have an overabundance of cuts that made it feel choppy, the gore wasn't overdone. It was shocking, yes, but for a purpose, kind of like Invincible, showcasing the severity of these dark tones. It was incredible. My only complaints for this episode don't even relate to this episode in particular, really. More so, I just wish these writers were able to rewrite the entire season, because they would have made Muse so much more interesting, as well as incorporate side characters in a better way, because Jesus, these army side characters Matt's trying to include suck. I've already talked to you guys about Cherry. I think he's so flat. And who is he? Like, we still don't even know his backstory. Kirsten is one-dimensional, and Heather, as soon as Karen showed back up, I totally forgot about her. Like, holy shit. Their chemistry in one scene is better than the entire season of Heather and Matt. Hopefully, season 2 fleshes these characters out more, because I'm not opposed to them being here. I don't want to hate them, but if they're only in the show to just fill space, I don't want them. Give me depth. I'm a man of substance. So, this episode was phenomenal. I loved it. Does it greatly impact my view of this season, though? A bit, for sure. If I had to rate this whole season, I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. These final 2 episodes really gave me hope for the future, and I'm really excited for the Punisher spinoff, because that end credits scene at the end of this episode, if you didn't see it, you should definitely check it out, was pretty cool. I'm hoping he gets more than a special presentation, honestly, because he deserves a new show in itself after what this episode showcased. God damn it, I love John Bernthal. Also, since Fisk has the whole city in lockdown, what is Spider-Man doing, bro? Because this man's gonna be on fraud watch. I know they can't do anything legally, but like, damn, man. This is his city, bro. Like, the whole city's on lockdown. Where is he right now? This gives me like, where is Batman in the Penguin type energy? You know what I'm saying? Now, I posted on my posts tab recently about whether you guys would want to see me compare it with season 1. Now, it definitely didn't win majority, but I still wanted to talk quickly about these 2 seasons anyway. Daredevil Born Again, season 1, holds absolutely nothing compared to season 1 of the original show. Let's make that clear up front. They're not really comparable. The first season of Daredevil is consistently entertaining, engaging, and the writing is phenomenal. Side characters are fleshed out, action isn't choppy, and the color grading and lighting of the show is insane. We haven't had such good lighting and color grading in a superhero show since 2016. Daredevil season 1 is able to incorporate Matt's origin into this fascinating journey across 13 episodes. Do I think the fact each episode is actually 60 minutes and has 4 more episodes than Born Again's total could be a huge difference? Sure. However, I don't think the original writers on Born Again having more episodes would have changed anything. I don't think they would have utilized the extra time to make a better show. Probably just make more filler episodes. Born Again feels stitched together by 2 different writing groups because it literally is. And it's noticeable. You feel it. Episode 1 feels completely detached from the next 5 episodes. It's insane. And that's why episode 1 is, in my opinion, the worst episode on this list. It's trying to accommodate for a whole half season of stuff that isn't really important until you get to episode 8. Side characters in this show are bland and boring. I've said it multiple times. Villains like Muse are wasted and ruined. White Tiger isn't really fleshed out enough, in my opinion. And the action is downright poorly made besides a few instances. The only reason to watch the show is so you can get to the final 2 episodes, because those episodes make you feel like you're back watching the original show. It's grounded, it's exciting, and it's entertaining. Daredevil season 1 is as close to perfect as you can get for a superhero TV show. Every character has moments to shine. Every character has agency. No scene from the original writers of this season hold a candle to the intensity the Ben Urich death scene with Fisk holds. However, the new showrunners for the final episodes get close to that original show's vibe and vision, and that's what keeps me excited for what's to come next season. So, do I think this show is worth watching? Honestly, yeah, it's a jumbled mess of different visions, but I think the trajectory of where this show is going next season is what makes it worth the watch. Plus, Charlie Cox as Daredevil deserves to be seen. If you're in the mood for Daredevil, I'd check it out, because even the worst of this show has some great moments to it. Nothing in the show feels cringy. There's no cartoony or over-the-top dialogue that ruins other MCU projects. Is it up to snuff with the original show? Like I mentioned, no. But it could be next season, so I'm holding out hope for that. But if you have seen the show, what do you think of it? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe, because YouTube pushes this video out to more people like you who enjoy these types of videos. Also, hit that notification bell if you want to be notified of new videos the moment they drop. That's really important for me. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed this review of Daredevil Born Again. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.